Hi, Sid. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tim.
A very big welcome. So good to see you from a distance. Yeah, we're not sit.
Likewise.
It looks
Likewise.
like, but we're not sitting next to each other, right? Um, so screening from Denmark. I'm based in the north of Denmark, based in Copenhagen. So the topic we will be having a chat on today is around VIM, uh, which stands for Vendor Invoice Management. So that's basically an advanced invoice management solution, to help organizations deal with the invoices they receive and have to process and eventually pay for the goods and services they purchase from their vendors, right? So you ready for that, Sid?
Absolutely.
Good. So now I've known you for many, many years, not at least in the last 7+ years here in Turnpikes, and where you, let's say, put a stamp in this exciting team is with your experience and your knowledge about Vim. Yeah, so you've been dealing with invoice management for quite a few years. Is that
hmm
right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah.
So it's been more than, I would say, 15 years, more than 45 WIM projects all over the world, right? I think the only continent we haven't touched yet is Antarctica. So I have to still do a go live in Antarctica if I really think about the continents. Apart from that, probably we have seen a lot of invoices from all over the world.
Yeah. Good, exciting. Maybe, I mean, before we go into, let's say, what's relevant now in 2023 around invoice management, just start with the basics. I mean, why would an organization need to have a good vendor invoice management system in place?
A very interesting question. Vendor invoice management is one of the very basic business process, right? And it's not anything new. It has been there since man was living in a cave. Yeah, you wanted a chicken, butter it with the egg. uh, then you move to houses. You say, I have a bread, take 2 pennies. I don't have the bread today. You put a credit note, get it on. It has been there. The process is fundamental. It's a matter of just getting a service or goods and paying for it. So what's the big deal about it? Now imagine in today's world we have an ERP system where all the processes are happening, and or actually it's not even today's world, it was some time ago. ERP systems came into picture. SAP, for example, yeah, used in all big organizations. Now an ERP system means they are the processes and the businesses are all over the world in a lot of countries. So the simple process of getting an invoice for the goods and service that you procure, making sure that you have received those goods or the services and pay them on time. So these simple steps, when scaled up on a global level with a complex organization, then it's not so simple anymore.
Hmm.
In that context, VEM as a solution basically receives the invoice, makes sure that the invoice is good and ready to be paid, and posts the document in SAP and make it ready for payment. In the process, you can very well do it manually, right? You can have people doing the same thing, checking it, putting it on, and going forward. And for a smaller volume, that is fine, and it's maybe better if you're a small company, look at in one place. But if you're a big company who have business else in a lot of countries, and then you have a lot of invoices flowing around in thousands and millions, then probably manually you will be not able to keep up with it. So then you look at somehow automating it.
Hmm.
And Vim comes into picture. It is a workflow at the heart of it. It can accommodate all kind of input channels. It has a OCR for PDF. It can connect to XMLs in today's world, EDI, and so on. It has got business rules to check things internally, like is it the right vendor, right amount, right currency, the right tax code, etc., etc. If there is not right for whatever reason, it routes to the right person in the organization, the workflow, so the person can take the appropriate step that he's supposed to take. Yeah, I need
Hmm.
to do the goods receipt, or I need to find the tax code, and then push it forward. Yeah, and the workflow then determines the next steps and then posts it.
Hmm.
And so-called happy flow, you don't need to touch anything, right? It gets automatic. So then Vim is your friend in that automation journey. And that's why in today's world, it is becoming more and more relevant.
Okay. I remember when we, let's say, started the company 7 years ago, and already at that time we had a high focus, on automation. Yeah, we already talked happy flow and touchless and all of that. But I also remember that we thought, okay, when we then are talking to the customers, who at that time were all getting more and more mature with the shared service centers. Yeah, shared service centers, people in maybe more cost-effective countries than maybe Scandinavia. That we thought, okay, but when we talk to the management of these shared service centers, we were a bit in doubt if they were actually interested in automation. Yeah, because we thought kind of maybe hits their team and the size and the importance that they would have in an organization. What was how did that look 7 years ago, and how does that look today?
We're living in a very fast changing world, right? I mean, I still remember when I started my career, people were not sure whether they should go for ERP because they had accounting system, they had material system. Why should they put one more system which has everything?
Mm,
So what the time you're referring is when you set up a shared service center, you want to centralize all your processes. That's your main goal of the company, and your focus and energy is rightfully spent in that part of the world. Yeah, you have to centralize, you have to standardize your process, you have to bring it all into one place.
mm,
Once you have done that, you go on the optimization journey and you want to do more with less. So many of companies that we talked to at that point were in the first part of the journey, standardizing the process, putting underneath systems to support them, and making sure that they bring the processes from all part of the organization under one single roof. So I personally believe that we see maturity of these processes in organizations, accompanied by the fact that the landscape, both business, IT, and legal, are changing fast. So
mm.
humanly, it is not possible to keep track of all the things together. So you need help. Yeah. So we see automation picking up, but that's my view on this. But I'm sure you also have a opinion on how you see things,
No,
right, Tim?
I mean, I remember the conversations initially. That indeed, let's say at that moment in time, many of the shared service center managers that I talk to, they say, no, I mean, we do want to automate, right? Because for them, both to attract and to retain staff, for that matter, yeah, was not obvious. And they say sometimes, there's some turnaround and people, leaving. So that was one challenge which motivated them to have a system to automate and not be dependent
Mm.
on staff. That was one message. The second message was, basic the pure transactional work is not that value adding. Yeah. So they would rather have things automated so that the people they do have can add more value. Yeah, and that would make their importance as a shared service center in an organization even higher.
That's true. I mean, indeed, as I said, the first part is done. You have centralized your process. Then you want to do more with your people, right, and
Mm,
have more value-added work. And that's where shared service center managers have the intention and the right agenda to
mm.
automate the transactional processes, so to speak.
Okay. So relevant 7 years ago, even more relevant today. Yeah, because
Absolutely.
again, if I judge from the conversations, I mean, automation is getting more and more to the forefront of the conversations. But I mean, there's a few things when I talk about it and when I think about it that are important. Is one is, what do we mean with automation? Yeah, because when you talk with accounts payable people and process owners or procure to pay, there's different terms. Right? We talk about automation, we call it touchless. You mentioned the happy flow. We know customers call it STP, straight through processing, and first time right, and FTR, and all of those different terms. So, is that a bit of a jungle? Could we spend maybe a few minutes to define what we mean and just call it automation, or what would you suggest?
Well, an analogy if I want to put it is I want to go in a few weeks. We are starting summer vacation, right? I want to go on a vacation. The first thing that comes down into my mind is a beach, and I'm lying there.
I can already imagine.
Yeah, that's my vacation. But in reality, my vacation starts by planning, yeah, booking my tickets, on the day of planning, getting the kids, all the baggage, making it to the airport, putting it in the check-in, security queue, take the flight, the kids crying on the way, get down, go to the hotel, stand in the queue, find the room, sleep there because I'm tired. If I have everything fine, next day morning I might go to the beach, which is crowded, or may not. Automation is a journey. It's not one single switch or a multiple switches that someone can take and you are there. Now, what is automation in this context? I mean, we also have automated, cars being worked on, automated planes being worked on,
mm,
all things automated. Automation, in a way, is saying we don't want human touches. Yeah, machines, robots, programs should do it for our behalf. That's the journey we are looking at.
mm,
My view of me lying on vacation in a beach.
mm.
How do I get there? That's
But
the
does it mean indeed that, let's say, it is literally, let's say, a vendor, a supplier? Yeah, take us. Yeah, so Turnpike sends after month end an invoice to our customers. That at that customer side, there's no human being looking even at the invoice, seeing it, and we basically get money paid 30 days later, if that's our
that's the
agreement
ultimate
terms.
that's the ultimate
That's
goal.
what we mean. Yeah.
That's
So,
what we
but
can.
but that means, so we send our invoices in PDF, right? So they go
Mhm.
automatically out of our ERP system, nice email pre-configured, with then a PDF, so the actual invoice document, so to speak, as a PDF to the email. I guess that's still the main channel we see in most of the
That's the
organizations.
majority part of invoices we see, which is
Hmm.
fast changing.
Hmm.
uh, yeah, across the world because of the e-invoice regime. So, but let's assume there will be multiple channels. You also
Hmm.
uh, today's world is not monolithic. We are in a hub and spoke model already, which is going to get more hubs around. There
Hmm.
are business networks, there are procurement systems, there are e-invoice regimes, and there are papers and PDFs. So there is no single channel where a big
Hmm.
organization will receive their invoices from. So we will have
Hmm.
multiple channels, yes.
Hmm. Yes, but if I may, maybe just come one step back. If I want to zoom in on my own PDF invoice, yeah, which I know in some of our customers
Mhm.
receive, hundreds of thousands per year, some even hundreds of thousands per month, of those emails with PDF invoices attached. So if we talk about automation, now a PDF, let's say, is not an electronic invoice, right? It's not like a
Correct.
technical XML where you have a nice label and okay, this is the label in the XML, so that's the value and that's the field. But we still talk, just to be clear, on automation, that it is possible you receive a PDF invoice and that will go through the whole system without any human involvement.
Touch and the yes, indeed. So it will go
Correct.
through the system. First, it touches, hits the OCR, right,
Hmm.
the optical character recognition engine, uh, and the optical character recognition engine will pick up all the relevant invoices from our invoice without any manual intervention accurately and
Hmm.
hand it over to the SAP workflow or the Vim workflow.
Hmm.
So it will be touchless.
Okay.
And once it is handed over to the SAP workflow, so there will be rules defined in that workflow. For example, is Turnpikes blacklisted or not?
Hmm.
What is the payment terms for Turnpikes? What is the purchase
Hmm.
order that was relevant, etc., which the information should be also matching with what we are sending on the invoice.
Hmm.
If they all match what we have the invoice, what is in the master data of the customer or the purchase order
Hmm.
of the customer, then it's good to go, right? It can be
Okay.
posted and filled.
Okay. But that means, let's say, again, once you're in the SAP workflow, you have the data to work with. There, I would say the level of automation probably highly depends on how you've done your housekeeping. You have some level of control on how you've maybe planned your purchase. You have the purchase order or first purchase requisition, then you have a purchase order. Then once the goods arrived, you probably do an entry in the goods receipt, and then everything nicely matches with each other. Correct?
Indeed. If I just take a step back and just try to comment on what you just said, add a few comments around it. An account payable process, for example, and that's the process we are talking about. It starts with, and we think of a system. Yeah, invoice comes, it goes into Vim.
Mm.
That's the foundation of it. But that's a very small part of the process. The system uses data. Data is
Mm,
master data, transactional data, right? The quality of data has a direct impact on what happens. Those system and data are used by people. People have their own behavior due to cultural, geographic, and so on. Then there's the organization. Typically, every organization might have a different business model, the geographies they work with, the way they are structured. So the organization, the people, and the data have to come together
mm,
to be supported by the underlying system, and then we achieve automation.
mm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a key thing, right? It's not just software and
In-
technology.
It's a good platform to
It's
start with.
it's a prerequisite, if I can call it like that. But it is not, let's say, it's not a silver bullet. There's no guarantee. There's no
This
guarantee. Yeah.
it's not a silver bullet, but it's a the right tool that you have, and tools are as
Mm,
good as as how we use it.
mm. Okay. But then still, coming back to my simple PDF example, it does mean that the software today, the capabilities of that OCR or the capture software, um, is, can basically extract all the relevant fields of my invoice, even in a PDF.
Absolutely. I mean, the OCR can extract all the fields in the PDF, and it has the machine learning capability saying, for example, if the first time it could not pick up a date, then someone, and that we often do before we implement the OCR in the production system, checks it, and the OCR learns immediately. The biggest advantage of this OCR compared to the other OCRs out there in that the Vim OCR sits within SAP and is integrated to the SAP master data, and so is the Vim workflow.
Mm,
So then there's a tight collaboration between the two softwares, right? I
mm,
mean, the core SAP master data as well as OCR, because OCR data is in SAP. There's no separate database for that OCR, so to speak.
mm. Okay.
So because of that, we have a really good performance of
Mm,
the OCR.
yeah. Okay. But that's at least, I would argue, a part where the technology plays
Mhm.
an extreme important role to have reliable and very performant, based on machine learning, data capture. Because if the data
Mm.
not captured, then I guess some human being has to change it or complete it. Correct?
Indeed, indeed.
Okay. Okay. Good. But then the next thing is, okay, then we go into the SAP. Yeah. And then what I
Mhm.
hear still a lot is you can have planned purchases, yeah, where you have a purchase order in advance, but then you also have still a lot of purchases done where you do not plan it and you do not have a purchase order, the
Mhm.
so-called non-PO invoices. Now, I think for the PO, and that is nothing new for many years, when you have that flow, of a purchase order, your goods receipt, and your invoice, and your nice three-way matching, then automation can be achieved. But what's the status today for that other category, the non-PO invoices? Do we have any chance there to get through without human touch?
Yeah. So if we talk specifically about the invoices that are coming without a purchase order, how are they how are they posted? So someone has to then put in the cost elements. Yeah,
Mm,
which cost center this cost is going to be booked against, what GL account, what tax code. Now that is a manual element to be done even without all the automation in place. Typically in IT solution, right, in a system like Vim.
mm,
But what Vim has now is a machine learning feature around that part as well. Yes, that is called smart coding.
mm,
So there is a machine learning component of Vim which looks at your historical data and says, okay, this invoice is coming from Turnpikes, and this has been booked against a specific cost center and a specific GL account, etc., in the last 2 years. And depending on that data, it will propose a confidence indicator, uses a machine learning deep learning algorithm, and with that, we are able to achieve automation in the non-PO coding step as well.
mm. Okay. But that's a fairly, let's say, recent capability, if I'm right, or not.
To be very honest, it's not very new. It has been there for some years already in Vim. Now there are different flavors. It depends. Vim is sitting on SAP. Whether you are a S4 HANA customer, then you can use the PAL library. Even if you're not a S4 HANA customer, you are an ECC. There is an ABAP version of it, and it has been there for some time now. And it's
Mm,
probably, as I call, one of the best kept secrets of Vim
mm.
till now.
Okay. Okay. Cute. But I know for a fact that we're starting to activate this at more and more customers. And I also start to receive now the first feedback, which I think is unanimously positive. Um, with that disclaimer, is that I don't hear customers saying, okay, now all our non-PO invoices go through fully automatic. Some do, but where they already see a really, really big, let's say, improvement is from those, let's say, account payable users that now get at least a suggestion, which in terms of productivity, I would assume is a really, really nice feature. Is it?
Absolutely. I mean, what really happens in the non-PO flow is that the so-called coder or the AP person doesn't know which is the right cost element.
Mm,
So they often refer around, right? They refer to someone, ask for information, and then very soon that invoice is lost inside the organization, the whole jungle.
mm,
Now, what is changing with smart coding? In many cases, it does automatically, that is fine. But in the cases where it doesn't find enough confidence, at least that AP clerk has on their screen possible values that have been used in the last 2 years. So the
okay.
question that he was asking around and waiting
Okay.
is there on his screen.
Yeah, yeah. So also, I mean, either question asking around or searching the system to check back how did I post this invoice or code the invoice a month ago, 2 months ago, last time we received from this vendor. So
Yeah, I mean,
so
these
this is
people
now
are, yeah,
in the
indeed.
same, yeah, which again, size does matter
Yeah, yeah.
in some cases. But if you indeed have high volumes, right, even again, we're coming back to the thousands or millions of invoices yearly, then I guess this really matters to see this in that same screen transaction on the spot and say,
Absolutely.
okay, oh, here's a suggestion, and then you basically tick the
Hmm.
right boxes and off you go.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Good, good, good. So we're seeing more of that with dot, and we're basically seeing, the shared service centers being also then big fans of automation, not just, let's say, to free them up for more value adding work, but yeah, also as a kind of a very user friendly productivity tool. That be a
Indeed. I mean, then we see once we achieve automation, at least a relatively higher percentage of automation, then the resources are free to really do analytical work,
hmm,
right? And value added work, as you call it. Then you look at different perspective of how you can better improve the process, how can you look into other things that you have not been able to do it because
hmm,
of now. And we increasingly see a trend in that direction where we are working with our customer base.
okay, cool. All right, all right. Um, two last points before we like say conclude for the chat today. Um, if again we look at this non-PO automation capabilities with Vim, yeah, you mentioned it's been like one of the best kept secrets. Is it then also something very complex? I mean, do you need to spend a lot of time, let's say, implementing that?
Actually, no, because this is kind of out of the box. I mean, well, not kind of, it's actually out of the box.
Hmm,
So you decide what is important is to understand how it works, which is mostly the IT architects or the business owners,
hmm,
to make them aware how this works and then have an agreement. But the actual hands-on work to activate it is a matter of hours, so to speak. Yeah,
hmm,
or maybe 1 or 2 days if you want to test it around as well.
hmm,
And it can be fairly quickly set up, and it's available both on the Fury and the SAP GUI
hmm,
screens. And it's
hmm.
it's just there. It's a matter of just activating it by clicking a few configuration buttons.
All right, wonderful. As a closing question, remark, within the Vim space, if you look at future, do you see more AI capabilities on the radar that maybe are not there yet? But what can we expect in this space?
Indeed, I mean, we are in close contact with Prim Product Management. We hear from their product strategies and attend their sessions. We know from a product perspective, they are working on more use cases similar to smart coding for non-PO. Take PO line item matching, for example, or predicting blocks, for example. I think there is a huge potential, not only potential things that are being worked on. So in the short to medium term, we will see more and more use cases coming out of the product. At the same time, with the bigger landscape where we see, as I told earlier about the hub and spoke model, right? So
Mm,
we have other components coming into play. There I see a lot of potential of how that area will play out. Yeah, with SAP BTP and all the new age technologies coming out, I do see a lot of activity going on in that space as well.
Wonderful. Let's park the sub BTP and how that can be relevant with Vim for one of our next chats. I'll thank you a lot today, Sid. I learned a
Thank you,
few new
Tim.
things. It was nice catching up, and enjoy the rest of your day in
Always a
Copenhagen today.
pleasure. Always a pleasure. Have a great day, Tim.
Thank you, Sid, and thanks
Yeah.
everybody for
Thank
tuning
you.
in today. Bye bye.
Bye.